Seltzer Kings.
Podcasts.
This podcast is supported by FX's English Teacher. Last year's critically acclaimed series returns to follow Evan, Gwen, and Marky as they vie for their students' divided attention. See why Cosmopolitan called its premiere season a masterclass of comedy, while Glamour raved it's the year's funniest and most heartwarming new comedy series. FX's English Teacher returns September 25th on FX. All episodes streaming on Hulu.
This episode is brought to you by FXX and Hulu. An all-new season of Futurama is back, blending heartfelt moments with razor-sharp humor while accidentally saving the day. The Planet Express crew is back, defying gravity and common sense. From the creator of The Simpsons comes 10 new episodes, where the romance is hotter, the threats are bigger, and the action hits harder. Don't miss the all-new season of Futurama. Watch it Mondays on FXX or stream it on Hulu.
Gavin, just think of it like, I don't know, finding a sausage outside a crumpet shop. It's literally the same thing.
Yes. The following podcast contains...
You used to be a kind, loving man, and now you're a foul-mouthed monster.
Explicit language.
Hello and welcome to the podcast that asks a simple question. When you put that severed penis in a hot dog bun bag, what the hell were you thinking? I'm your host, Dave Bledsoe, and this episode number 508, the John's Detachable Penis edition of the show. We talk about that time in the 90s when a shitty dude got his dick chopped off. Stay tuned. What the Hell You Thinking podcast is brought to you by Total Package Protection. Never have a penis without it. In a world full of unforeseen dangers, you cannot afford to leave anything to chance. That's why you need Total Package Protection. TPP offers comprehensive security, insurance, and location tracking for your most precious jewels. TPP understands how uncomfortable men can be at the thought of injury or removal of their manhood, which is why we provide a discreet, affordable service that protects your package from loss or injury, including a satellite tracker, just in case you should become separated for any reason. Total Package Protection. Total security for your most important assets.
I want to talk about this fooling around shit, because if you fooled around, I would be so hurt. You know what I would do? What would you do, baby? Take half? No, I'd wait till you went to sleep and I'd come inside the room and cut your dick off. Don't be talking about cutting off my dick. Well, you don't be putting your dick in nobody else then. I don't play that shit. You cut off my dick, you better run, goddammit. Stop making them dick threats. The woman's favorite, y'all always make, y'all don't really, that's the woman's favorite threat is I'll do something to your dick. Y'all always talk about, man, do this, I'll kick him in his nuts. And the man put his hand on you, put your hands on me, I'm gonna kick you where it hurts. Y'all always dick threats. Y'all don't realize how sensitive nuts are, do you? Because men don't even like to hear a threat like that. You hear somebody, I kick you in the nuts, make your wince be like, ooh, change the subject, please. You don't have to kick no nuts to hurt nobody. You could just graze nuts. And the man to be fucked up. And that pain is worse because it don't set in for like 10 seconds. You be wondering if it's gonna hurt. You say, I wonder, did that hit my nuts just...
When you've been alive as long as I have...
Shut up, old man.
You're gonna run into people that just don't flat like you very much. Maybe you've said something that offended them. Maybe you cost them money. Maybe the two of you were in a romantic relationship and had sex, and now,
I wish I hadn't done that.
Learning to deal with this is just part of the long and painful process called growing up. And as you might expect, I have had my share of women who found me wanting.
Let's start with your mom.
There was a girl in high school who wanted to go out with me, but I was too nerdy to recognize this, and we never got off the ground. And there was Michelle, my first steady girlfriend, and by steady girlfriend, I mean we regularly had sex, but we never went on dates or did anything that could be remotely considered a couple activity. And this worked for a while, but then she wanted me to meet her parents, and I freaked out, ghosted her, and ended up dating her roommate 3 months later.
Fucking men.
Then there was the girl that I dated a couple of times, but freaked out because she called me too much. So I told her I was being sent on deployment. I wouldn't be back for 6 months. Only then to run into her at a party 2 weeks later.
I hate all men. Men are pigs.
There was the girl I abandoned in a Juarez, Mexico bar, but in my defense, she did ask me to help her smuggle drugs stashed in her cooch back across the border into Texas, so that one's not entirely on me. There was the fiance of a co-worker who generously invited me to stay at her place during a big storm, and we sort of got drunk and slept together, and she got mad at me because I wouldn't tell her fiance what happened, which she felt like we had to do, to make things right.
No. Hard pass. Hard pass.
Far as I know, she never told him what happened, but she carried a grudge against me for years. Blamed me for them not getting married. I wasn't the one who was engaged. I didn't cheat on anyone. And of course, there was the one woman where I actually do feel like I am the bad guy. I mean, she got really sick, damn near died, and because of her illness, she could never drink alcohol again. And she never came out and asked me to quit drinking too. Indeed, she never mentioned it at any time. But I was concerned that at some point she might mention me giving up drinking, and honestly,
this isn't going to work for me.
So I literally chose booze over her, which in all candor was a tremendously shitty thing to do. And of all the women that I did wrong, she's the one that I feel like has the most right to be angry at me, which of course she was. But you know what? Asshole I might have been, at least I never did anything so bad that the women involved felt the only thing they could do in response was, chop my dick off. Which brings me to this week's topic. That time in 1993 when a guy was such an asshole, he got his dick cut off and tossed out a car window into the weeds by a 7-Eleven, and America had jokes. The story was all anyone could talk about for a long while, and it made a lot of men think about how they treated the women in their lives. But first, we got to talk about the difference between castration and emasculation.
No, we most certainly do not.
Because the two terms are just tossed about willy-nilly when they were related, but actually quite different. I mean, castration is a procedure that results in a dude losing the function of his testicles. This does not mean that the testicles are necessarily removed. They may be, depending on the kind of procedure, but not always. Now I hear some of you asking,
And no one
is a vasectomy a form of castration? And I can happily report to you that it is not. The function of the testicles remains, but the sperm ducts are blocked off, rendering your baby bladder blank, and it is usually reversible. Castration means that the entire apparatus is shut down, eliminating the sex drive by all but eliminating the production of testosterone. This can be done medically, chemically, radiologically, or surgically, and is only reversible when it's done chemically. Emasculation, on the other hand, is the removal of everything.
Break some beans!
Historically, castration has been around for a long time, but the earliest records mentioning the procedures are over 4,000 years old from the Sumerian city of Lagash. Eunuchs were a handy thing to have around for powerful men. You could trust a eunuch the way you couldn't trust a regular guy because a eunuch was not going to knock up one of your wives. This is not to say he couldn't fuck your wives, because yes, Virginia, some castrated men, particularly if they were castrated after puberty, could still get it up.
Why are you telling us this?
I am trying to be informative. Eunuchs did more than guard the harem. They performed any number of roles in the government and court. They were perceived as more trustworthy because they couldn't make a family and create their own dynasties. They acted as scholars, scribes, spies, and soldiers. Some of the great warrior societies in history were consisted entirely of castrated men. Eunuchs were not just the province of Game of Thrones. They were bad dudes in real life. Not to mention how well they could sing. The practice of castrating little boys before puberty to preserve their high soprano voices persisted into the late 18th century in Europe. The practice of court eunuchs in China only ended in the early 20th century. And while most were slaves, there were those entrepreneurial eunuchs who gave up their balls for wealth and power. Emasculation, on the other hand, rather more dramatic.
Yeah, dude.
The Chinese court preferred their eunuchs be fully emasculated, and the Arab slave trades did as well, almost exclusively to little white Christian boys. There were several religious sects through the years that practiced ritual emasculation. The Skopje in Russia took their edicts against sex so seriously that men not only emasculated themselves, but the women would routinely lop off their own breasts to keep impure thoughts from being forced into the minds of by merely being in the presence of a boob. But the largest percentage of historical emasculations were as a punishment, either for rape, but only if the woman was the wife of someone powerful, or as part of a greater series of barbarous acts committed on someone for like treason or something. Either way, if it was a punishment, it was brutal, and you probably didn't survive. Either way, that brings us to John Wayne Bobbitt, who was in fact partially emasculated, and it was definitely done as a punishment. Our story begins maybe at a bar on base in Quantico in 1989. John Wayne Bobbitt was in the waning years of a hitch in the Marine Corps and was out with his buddies doing what Marines do when they're not doing official Marine things like grunting and blowing things up.
Cuss, drink, chase wild women.
Another version of the story of their meeting has this happening at the Marine Corps Ball, which is a big dinner and dance that celebrates the birth of the Marine Corps, the birthday of the Marine Corps, in which the Marines go out, get drunk, and try to fuck anything that moves. Fish stop swimming at the Marine Corps Ball. And on this particular evening, John happened to meet a dark-haired Latin beauty by the name of Lorena. Lorena was born in Ecuador and raised in Venezuela and had moved to the States recently and was attending community college while working as a manicurist. Lorena was most of all hoping to find a nice man, get married, and start a family. I am going to try and say this as non-judgmentally as possible. As someone who grew up on military bases and then later served in the military, there are certain young women who see young military men as a solid catch, and many of these young women are either the children of or are themselves immigrants. The perception of a military husband offers an illusion of security and community, and to be blunt, a path towards full citizenship. While this is more common in overseas bases, it happens stateside as well. This is in no way to imply that they're being dishonest or disingenuous or disreputable. They do not trap men in marriages, except for the small percentages who, trap men in marriages by getting pregnant as fast as they can. On the other hand, there are large numbers of young men, many of whom are away from home for the first time and looking for love, or if, at least not love, a good fuck. And they go out and prey on these young women, both metaphorically and quite literally sometimes. They say all the right words, imply a long-term future, and then they know they're getting laid tonight. And a lot of times when these two groups of individuals meet, a lot of bad marriages are the result. It's a very old story, going at least as far back as the Roman legions. Hail Caesar! Hail Caesar! Following the usual patterns, John and Lorena dated, married in 1989, and then shortly after, John left the service and took a job bartending, and Lorena continued to work as a manicurist. The two landed in a small town of Manassas, Virginia, today a bedroom community of Washington, D.C., but in the early 90s, it was a backwater town populated primarily by military families. It was shortly after the wedding that John showed what kind of man he was. He started verbally abusing Lorena, which, of course, progressed to physical abuse of Lorena and culminated in the regular sexual abuse of Lorena. The two became repeat customers for the Prince William County Police, who responded to their domestic calls to their homes multiple times. Inside Edition details just one of Prince William County's visits. Quote, only in one instance were charges brought, Kim Chin, a now retired sergeant with the Prince William County Police Department, told ABC News. We arrested John and charged him with assault and battery, and he got a cross warrant against Lorena and charged her with assault and battery. One of their charges was null pros, meaning that the charges were never formally filed, and the other was dismissed, unquote. The cycle of abuse spun around these two for 4 years of marriage. John would get drunk, come home, he and Lorena would fight verbally, then John would hit her, she would hit John back sometimes. Sometimes that would end it, and sometimes the cops would come. And sometimes, many times you might think, John would rape Elena.
Allegedly.
That's going to be the only alleged in this episode. I mean, it was never proven, it was in court, but that shit happened. On the night of June 23rd, 1993, John came home drunk as usual. Because working as a bartender, you tend to drink at work. The usual fight started as soon as John smacked her around a little bit, forced her to have sex with him, and then climbed into bed to sleep off his drunk. Lorena sat up stewing for a while, went into the kitchen to get a glass of water, and lying on the counter was the ubiquitous cutting instrument of the 1980s and 1990s.
The legendary Ginsu knife, the sharpest offer on television. But now there's Ginsu World Class, the finest knife in the world.
Finer than our German knives?
Yes, even finer than our own classic Ginsu. The high-carbon stainless steel blade has incredible strength. Even with abuse like this, it still never needs sharpening. Nothing cuts it like the Ginsu World Class. It's as simple as that. Even with its unique triple ground curved blade, it's yours for only $29.95. Complete with this double guarantee. Plus, these steak knives and accessory knives free. Order yours now.
For rush delivery, have your credit card ready and call 1-800-652-4242 or send $29.95 plus $4.95 shipping to Ginsu World Class, P.O. Box 4951, Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah, that was pretty dark. I probably shouldn't have played that. Because what happened after that was Lorena picked up that very sharp knife, walked back into the bedroom where her passed-out husband stored, grabbed him by the penis, stretched it tight, and sliced it right off. Ow! Ow! Then she walked out of the house, got in her car, and drove off. When you find yourself driving down the road in the dead of night with a severed dick in your hand, you got some choices you got to make. You can toss it on the floorboard of the car where it might roll under the seat and you'll never be able to grab it. Also, you know it's just going to get all covered in crumbs and carpet fuzz. You could throw it over your shoulder into the back seat, but if someone were to get in later, they might wonder why a dismembered dong was doing there. Now, you could lift up that center console thing where you keep your sunglasses and 38 cents and change, but it's probably going to smudge your sunglasses. So the best option is to do what Lorena did. You toss it out the window. The New York Times picks up that little thread of the story. Quote, 15 minutes away, near Maplewood Drive, was a gravel-strewn field where she disposed of the detached penis out the driver's side window. So why did she throw it away? I ask. I tried to drive the car. Obviously, I had this thing in my hand, so I couldn't drive, so I got rid of it. Obviously, unquote. Lorena drove all the way to the nail salon where she worked, and there she called the police. Pod friends, I personally have worked as a police dispatcher, and in my time, I took some pretty odd calls. There was a woman that used to call fairly regularly, demanding that we all come out and remove the aliens from her property that Eisenhower had put there back in 1952. This was in 1988. I once answered a 911 call from a man who was glued to his toilet. I've answered tragic calls, silly calls, fake calls, frustrating calls, but in all my time, I've never gotten a call about a severed penis. But I know for a fact that it's not the 911 call that's the hard part. The hard part is when you have to dispatch units to go look for the severed penis. Dispatch 2011. 2011, go. 11, I'm going to need you to swing by the 7-Eleven at 7301 Sudley and check the area for a severed penis. Dispatch 2011, copy. Did you say severed penis? Dispatch 11, affirmative. Caller says she threw it in the gravel by the side of the road of the store. Dispatch 2023? Go ahead, 2023. Dispatch, did you say penis? Dispatch 23, affirmative. Are you near the area? 23, negative. I just wanted to see if we can get you to say penis again. Yeah, okay. I'm going to need all the units on the net to monitor their radio discipline. Dispatch, this is 2007. Is there any word on how big that penis is? Dispatch 2007, negative. Penis size is unknown. That's what she said. Last unit identify. Last unit. Again, all units on the net. All units on the net. Monitor your radio discipline. And it would go on like that for about an hour. Meanwhile, back at home, John, who apparently had slept through the entire process. Pod friends, I've been drunk a lot in my life.
We know.
I've been every flavor of commode, hanging blacked out as a military man can be. Woken up in strange countries after starting drinking in a different country. I've been so drunk that I've lost track for several months in my life.
And you're proud of this.
And I've never been so drunk that you could chop off any portion of my anatomy, much less that portion of my anatomy, and I'm going to sleep through it. And yet, John Bobbitt, in the finest tradition of the Marine, who were some drinking motherfuckers, did this exact thing for long enough for his wife to leave the house, drive away, and toss his dick in some gravel. However, at some point, he did wake up to find himself covered in blood and missing his little battle buddy, and while his exact words are not recorded to history, one can only imagine they went something along the lines of, he told ABC News 25 years later, quote, I sprung up and I was bleeding. I was applying pressure. Then I immediately thought of something out of a horror movie, John said. A nightmare turned into reality. Bobbitt said that he was horrified, terrified, and thought I was going to die. That's it. I'm going to die, unquote. He managed his own 911 call, a call that I'm not going to try and recreate, and was transported to a nearby hospital for treatment. I'm guessing the ambulance crew was probably somber during the trip, but EMTs have a darker sense of humor than even cops, so you know there was some rough jokes back at the firehouse the following morning. Even 30 years later, the New York Times could still not resist inserting a little editorial giggle into the story when it wrote about the incident, quote, by them, she means the police, who sometime after 4:30 a.m. clutched their loins and went digging through the overgrown roadside grass for the missing member. They found it, put it on ice in a Big Bite hot dog box from a nearby 7-Eleven, and rushed to the hospital where in a 9.5-hour feat of urological and plastic surgery, it was retached and restored to almost full function, unquote. What happened next was the trial. Because you cut off a dick, you're going to get prosecuted. Lorena was charged with malicious wounding, and John was charged in a separate case with marital assault. John was acquitted because you could still beat and rape your wife back in 1993. Unlike today, probably not unlike today if Trump has anything to do with it, because El Presidente is a man that knows all about beating and raping his wife.
Allegedly.
In a brief trial where Lorena detailed what drove her to finally cut John from her life.
Really, Dave?
And John testified that none of it happened using the great defense, nuh-uh. The jury deliberated over Lorena's case for about 7 hours before returning a verdict of not guilty by reason of insanity. Lorena was admitted to a mental hospital for 45 days and was released, and a short time later, the couple's divorce was finalized. But America was not done with the Bobbitts, because America found the entire story highly amusing. I am no different. It took a little while for what was indeed a local story to creep into the national zeitgeist. Morning FM shock jocks were the first to pick it up, always on the lookout for a wild story to fill an airtime segment. For example, Burbank's Power 106 held what they called a Lorena Bobbitt weenie toss. You tossed a hot dog, you hit a bullseye, you win a free ladies' night on the town. From there, it moved into the late night shows. Leno quipped, "I understand that John and Lorena want to get a divorce. That could shape up to be one of the ugliest custody battles in history."
You do the shittiest Leno.
No, I don't do the shittiest Leno. Leno does the shittiest Leno. Letterman loved the Bobbitt story. It made the top 10 list many times. Here are just a few of them. Top 10 things overheard at the Lorena Bobbitt trial. January 13th, 1994. Number 4, Mr. Bobbitt, I'm with the Velcro Corporation and we've got an idea for an ad. Top 10 Disney productions in Times Square, February 4th, 1994. Number 2, Beauty and the Bobbitt. Top 10 signs you're at a bad Halloween party, October 31st, 1994. Number 2, a woman dressed as Lorena Bobbitt mistakes you for a guy dressed as John Bobbitt. And goes on from there. And even the respected news entities couldn't help themselves with just a little tittle of jokiness that ran through their coverage. Chicago Tribune columnist Mike Royko ran 2 days of columns of limericks submitted by his readers. This is an example. This case, said the cops, sure does pickle us. Searching for a man's thing doesn't tickle us. It was somewhere around here that she threw the man's gear, but to us, the whole thing is ridiculous. And because when something like this happens, a man has 2 choices. He can slink off stage in shame and hope that America finds something or someone to distract him from the utter embarrassment that you endured, or you could take a different path like John did. People magazine wrote in a 1993 article titled Severance Pay, quote, "It's 6:15 a.m. and a very tense John Wayne Bobbitt is sitting in the green room at New York City's WXRK-FM, home of Howard Stern's syndicated radio show. Bobbitt is among friends here. Howard Stern is holding a telethon. The shock jock typically uses a cruder expression to raise money to help pay for Bobbitt's estimated $250,000 in legal and medical expenses," unquote. In an interview with the Tampa Bay Times in 1993, quote, "The first time he heard a John Wayne Bobbitt joke, John Wayne Bobbitt was lying in the hospital bed, recuperating from the wound that made him famous. He laughed. I had to hold on to the bed," Bobbitt said. "I was still in stitches." He's still laughing, even though he is not fully recovered from his ex-wife slicing off his penis with a fillet knife. Bobbitt told his tale in an excruciating detail on Monday to an enthusiastic Tampa Bay radio audience. The stop was part of a fundraising publicity tour to cover his $350,000 in legal and medical bills, unquote. Yes, legal and medical bills. That is what drove John Wayne Bobbitt to form a band that he named The Severed Parts. I looked for any audio of the band and I found nothing. Honestly, if I had a research budget, I would spend all of it just trying to find one song by John Bobbitt and The Severed Parts. Alas, I don't. The band, of course, did not raise enough money to pay his bills, which is why John Wayne Bobbitt turned to porn. And that's why he started a dubious piece of smut called John Wayne Bobbitt Uncut in 94, and another in 96, which was named Frankenpenis. It was midget porn. He dabbled in professional wrestling, appeared on WWE's Raw is War to console a bottom-tier wrestler named Val Venus, whose storyline had him suffering a traumatic penis experience. And of course, he became a regular member of Stern's Whack Pack, Oh, and he was also charged with domestic battery after beating up a new fiancée in the later 90s. And in 2004, he was charged with grand larceny for retail theft, domestic battery again after that in the same year in 2004. And he still pops up from time to time in the news, most recently in 2024, after having his toes amputated, though this time it had nothing to do with a romantic partner. And finally, he has appeared in various news reports around the release of documentaries and anniversaries of the event. For his part, John says that he still loves Lorena and continued to send her Valentine's Days and chocolates for decades.
Very good. Yeah, swell.
Lorena, who now goes by her maiden name of Gallo, remained largely out of the public eye. She, too, has had some minor legal issues, charged with assaulting her mother over disagreement about what to watch on TV, but she was acquitted from that. She continues to work as a manicurist and founded a domestic violence prevention group called Lorena's Red Wagon. She is remarried and has a daughter and still lives outside of Washington, D.C. She's spoken on television in recent years about what happened and appeared with John on the TV show Insider in 2009, though through it all, Lorena has maintained her dignity, self-respect in the face of offers to pose for porn magazines, appear on television, and generally caper to the minstrel show of America's sense of humor. She remains a tireless advocate for the victims of domestic violence and an exemplar of how one handles the tragedy of sudden fame for the worst of possible reasons, and she deserves her privacy and, yes, our respect. Now, of course, none of this has stopped me or anyone else from making jokes, but I mostly kept them aimed at the deserving party in this situation, John, because you can be a victim and be an asshole at the same time. Was it right that Lorena chopped John's dick off? No. Did John deserve to get his dick chopped off? Well, I don't know. John Bobbitt was an abuser and a rapist. He used his power over Lorena to control her and then used his notoriety to grasp for fame. John Bobbitt was, I don't know, maybe is a piece of shit. And while I certainly don't condone what happened to him, I think actions have consequences. If you do harm in life, that harm has a way of coming back to you. Maybe you get your dong docked in your sleep, or maybe you're just out there spreading your hate and someone comes along and does something about it. Because karma is just a real fucking bitch.
Are you trying to say something?
Welcome to Only Murders in the Building,
the official podcast.
Join me, Michael Cyril Creighton, as we go behind the scenes with some of the amazing actors, writers, and crew from Season 5.
The audience should never stop suspecting anything.
How can you not be funny crawling around on a coffin? No, that's true.
Catch Only Murders in the Building official podcast, now streaming wherever you get your podcasts. And watch Only Murders in the Building, streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
That is it for the show this week. Yeah. Maybe I might have been referencing something or someone besides John Bobbitt right there at the end. I just can't imagine who that might be. Cancel me, fuckers. Where was I? Oh, yeah, so there's that, and we're staring down the last week of September, and yeah, we're not going to be here next week. It's going to be a rerun because y'all know what time it is. That's right. It's Spooktacular time. October is going to be all sorts of witchy goodness because this Spooktacular, we're talking about witches. Our teaser promo is in your feed by the time you hear this, and our promos are all up on our social media. So all you got to do is listen and maybe kick us $1 for Gavin's wart removal at patreon.com/whatthehellpodcast. Or you could rate and review us because we do that too. Do all the things Jeremy tells you to do in the closing credits. Otherwise, well, he'll put a spell on you. And so for me, Dave, I woke up this morning with a bad hangover, and my penis was missing again. Bledsoe, producer.
No, I'm not going to discuss this. It's crude.
Gavin and all the fictional penis havers on the show, we want to say, having a detachable penis is really handy because you can leave it at home if you think it's going to get you into trouble. And we'll see you all in 2 weeks for part 1 of Spooktacular 2025.
I just go to a party and get drunk.
And the next morning, I can't for the life of me remember what I did with it. First, I looked around the apartment and couldn't find it, so I called up the place where the party was. And, well, they hadn't seen it either. I asked them to check the medicine cabinet because for some reason I leave it there sometimes, but not this time. So I told them if it pops up here, just let me know. I called up a few people that were at the party, but they were no help either. I was starting to get desperate. I really don't like being without my penis for too long. It makes me feel like...
What the Hell Were You Thinking stars Dave Bledsoe and features Gavin St. James and several fictional minions. The show is produced by Kimberly Steele and a part of the Seltzer Kings podcast network. You can find more information on the show on their website, whatthehellpodcast.com, or on Facebook as What the Hell Podcast. Thanks for listening.
I have no ending for this, so I take a small bow.
Aw, man, this is another rerun.
Seltzer Kings
Podcasts.